Good day, everyone. I wanted to talk about what's happening to the U.S. cities, a lot of our big cities. It's already happened. Some of it may be old news, but I'm one of these old pioneers that grew up in the 60s and the 70s. And when I was growing up, there's a lot of industry. I grew up in the New York City area, and there was a lot of industry over there. I mean, there was you wasn't worried about really getting a job. You wasn't really worried about too much getting a career because there was a lot of industry over there. And then a lot of the schools had a lot of the schools had vocational workshops. They had all kind of craftsman things that you can do from wood shop, printing, metal shop, automotive shop, body and fender shop. There was a lot of stuff to do. For the women, they had cooking classes. And that's one of the problems today. There was no cooking classes. That's why the women don't want to cook anymore. But they had, sewing classes, and you can't get a woman to sew anything anymore. But those classes are gone. You would have to go to either college or something like that to get these different classes. But back in the day, in public school and junior high school, those classes were available. You know, and you can pick almost two in each term. And I'm not even counting like the music classes, the art classes. You know, we also took art, took music. Mostly all my friends played instruments. I played drums, baritone, and trombone. You know, a lot of my friends they all played some kind of instrument, and also doing the other stuff like the. I also took printing, took screen shop. Uh, and we learned how to, do typefaces on the printing. Back then they had the big old printing presses and stuff like that. So you had to um, set the type and all of that sort of stuff. And in the music classes, we all knew how to read music. We all knew how to read music. Um, at the least, you read the music for the instrument that you played. But each one of us could read at least bass, clef, and treble kind of music. We kind of knew that, especially if you played enough. And as a kid, I grew up on the Lower East Side, so we had access to a lot of the companies down there. If anybody knows New York City, Lower East Side, you had the South Street, Water Street area, and they would stretch all along the bottom part of Manhattan, going around to when the where the Twin Towers used to be at, and these businesses were going on before the Twin Towers were even there. As a kid, we used to play around the Twin Towers when they were building it in the '60s. It used to be like a game for us. We would go out there, we would walk along the South Street along the water, and you know they had different companies out there. You had coffee companies, you had coffin making companies, you had gas stations, you had a water treatment plant on out there, and you had metal processing places. You had a company I used to deal with basic metal. Used to, you can go and bring different types of metal to them, and they would pay you for the metal that you brought them, um, trucking companies, all type of stuff. And um, and this was all along the '60s. As a kid, we used to go out there. That was our backyard, so we were going out there early. Like at the ages like at about, I was going out there 6, 7 years old, running the neighborhood. You know, getting coffee for the people in the warehouse, and we do that. I would do that early in the morning before I would go to school. Get up like 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. Those guys would be working out like 4 or 5 in the morning, and they had a restaurant over there, Sally's Restaurant, and you go. I would go over there and take their orders, and you know, bring them back. Most of the time, they wanted coffee and tea and some bagel or some sandwich, and that's what they would get. And that went on for about maybe 4 or 5 years, and then in the mid '60s, seen a lot of that stuff started to transition out. Like, um, some of the companies that were down there. Also, we had, Daily News had their trucks down there. You had the red buses that ran up, the Avenue, First Avenue, Avenue A, Avenue B buses. We used to call them Avenue B buses, but they were the red buses. We also called them, and they was there for a long time. I knew the mechanics well. I knew a lot of them by name. And in a lot of those companies, I knew a lot of those people by name because I used to go get them coffee and do a service for them as a kid. And all of this will be done before it will be time to go to school. you know, from in the first grade all the way up to I think it was like the third grade, second or third grade if I remember correctly. Then I, you know, started to wean away from that stuff because then um, it was an active community. A lot of my friends were very active, so we played a lot of sports. And we would be throughout the neighborhood every day. We was doing something, some type of sport, you know. And if there was no sports or no games to play, um, we would just wander the neighborhood. We would wander down South Street and walk along the water. We see a car parked over there. Sometimes we would sneak up behind the car because there'll be some adults and they're doing some stuff. So that was our playground in a sense. But um, but as in the late '60s, I started to see because I was down there a lot. A lot of my friends kind of branched away from that. They doing some other stuff. We all played sports, but I was still doing my morning action with a lot of those companies down there. So I kept in track with them, and I seen how some of them were just starting to wean out. I remember we had like two big uh, garbage companies down there that went around to the businesses, picked up their waste paper and their stuff like that. And I remember one of them going out, and that was a pretty big company. Um, Big meaning like about 30 trucks. That was big for me, 20 to 30 trucks. And then they had another one on the other side before the FDR Drive in that area. That was still there. But at that time, you started to see a lot of those companies started to just wean out. And I'm not even talking about the peers. You had like Pier 36 was right in that area. And Pier 36 was like a banana pier. And at that time, there was a lot of business down there. Certain days of the weeks when the ships would come in, the trucks would be lined up all along South Street, from Montgomery all the way down to sometimes going almost down to Rutgers, you know, in that area. So it was a lot of activity down there. It was a lot of things to do. There was always a way you can kind of do something, make a couple of dollars. And a lot of the people didn't have to do that because there was a lot of other opportunities out there. So you didn't even have to go down there. I just chose to go down there because I was attracted to that area. And there was just a lot of, you know, working people, working men, and they had the bus company. And I can go out there hang around with the mechanics, and they had the trucking companies, and I would go out there and help them out in the warehouses and load some of the trucks. And then they had the funeral, the coffin place. We used to go up there, and it was like a big playground for me just to go through these different businesses. And there was many, many more. I'm just naming a couple of them. Yeah, auto body and fender shops. You had another iron shop. You had iron shop. You had a basic metal shop, and you had this it was another sort of shop. There was about three big shops that collected metals over there. And this is only for the lower part of Manhattan. I'm only talking about a stretch of maybe uh, under under a mile, under half a mile actually. But it was a condensed area, South Water Street to Cherry Street, going all the way down to past Allen Street and going all the way down towards the Knickerbocker, where the Knickerbocker Projects was, and that was over there by Market Street. And then you also had the New York Post over there. So you had the New York Post over there by Knickerbocker, South Street, and I believe it was I forget the cross street. Market Street was one in between streets, but I'm just trying to think of the cross street. And there was the New York Post there, and then you had the Daily News on the east side of that. Before you would go towards the FDR Drive, they had all the trucks over there, and they housed the trucks over there. They were both, not that far from each other, within 4 blocks, 5 long blocks. Let's put it like that. But I'm saying all of this to say that um, I saw at that time when the company started to close, and just talking with some of the manufacturers over there, and I seen the shift when they was starting to move their products, to different places, and the change started to happen kind of quickly, but it didn't affect us that quick at the time because there was still a lot of other stuff going on. I'm just talking about one little section of the Lower East Side, you know, and when that changed, that did a lot. I mean, that was just the start of like a whole different setting for you know the industries of the cities because when it was happening down there, it was happening you know all over Manhattan and even in Brooklyn. Because as I got older, I used to drive. I did some driving, and I used to deliver out in Brooklyn and Queens. And you could see a lot of these businesses or the companies that we went to just starting to peel off and starting to just um, getting very slow. And then a lot of the stuff, a lot of our product was going overseas, you know, to the Far East, to China, Korea, there's a bunch of places out there. They would go to Japan, and then some of the stuff was coming in. They would send out some of that stuff would get like raw material, and then finished product would come in. So, and then as you got into the early '70s, you know, you could see the difference. A lot of those warehouses started to get vacant. Um, a lot of the companies started to thin out and close the doors, and it started to become like a little bit of a ghost town for a moment. And then they started building some high rises over there. And I guess they started to build those to fill in those empty spaces. So the small corporations moved out. And this is that little section. That section that I'm talking about must have had literally about 100 different companies. It was all different types. Uh, I'm just naming a couple of them, but they had over 100 different companies in that area. And a lot of people worked over there. And then after a while, that started to thin out. And then some of the places started to close. And then you had some high rises started to move in. And then as that started to happen, more places started to close. And then all of a sudden, you see like the newspapers, like the daily news trucks. Um, they put a school over there, and they put a park over there, so they had to move out. and then uh, they had another section on an adjacent block, and eventually that closed down and that moved someplace. And then the paper factory that was there for a lot of years that took waste paper and put it in bales and sent it out to wherever that closed down. And then the coffin shop closed down, basic metal shops closed down. All of that stuff started to close down and started to disappear. And most of the people, I mean, there was not much they can say because the control was over their head, so they really couldn't say anything about it or do anything about it. Um, and that industry just started to disappear. But one other thing I wanted to talk about was that even in our communities, like um, the neighborhood that I grew up was a mixed neighborhood, and we had all different types of people. I think our area was like one of the most mixed areas. We had from, you name the race, from Irish to Chinese to black, whatever. We had everybody in there, you know. So our area, it was a projects, and in that project area had one of the biggest mixes. But then you would go to the left of us, going towards like Knickerbocker, you had the Italians. You go further down, before you get to Knickerbocker, you go a little bit north, you had Chinatown. You go a little bit north of Chinatown, you had, you know, Forsyth, which was like a little mixture of, you know, Irish and white and some others. And then you go, so each area had their little section of stuff, you know. And I think our section was like one of the most mixed. Valadics had a mix. I wouldn't say as much as ours, but it was a mix. But and I'm saying this to say that um, at that time, a lot of the stuff wasn't being taken care of, and we were pretty active kids. And I would go down to the community boards meetings. They used to have them in the hospital and stuff like that. And and I seen at one time you could go down to the community board meetings and you can bring up different issues and talk with some of the politicians and see some of the stuff get done. But then I remember as I got older and I started going to, because we was an active group. We had tennis patrols, all that kind of stuff. You know, we used to do stuff for the neighborhood. And after a while, at the community board meetings, eventually I started to see that our community wasn't going down to the community boards that much, and it wasn't that active. And then I started seeing more of the Asian community at that time would be coming into the meetings, and other different groups will come into the meeting. And as they came in, the control started to change, and eventually the neighborhood started to change. Because at one time, Chinatown was at that time was between Pike Slip and I think it was Chattanooga Square was in that area, and they were going like about they were right up against Knickerbocker, and it wasn't that far. It was just like a little tight little area, and then it branched off towards Canal and going out that way, but it was still mixed in between. But as they started going down to the community board, you seen the difference in the power and the dynamics change. I seen it on our area because then they started going past um, Allen Street. Allen Street turned into Pike Street, and they would go past that point. And I'm not saying anything was wrong with that. I'm just saying that it was just one of these. We just had an education as far as on how the politics go. You know, I mean, if you don't have any people down at the community board meetings, you know, working on your behalf, your neighborhood's going to change, and that's what happened down to the Lower East Side. Um, we watched that neighborhood change from where it was just like it was a mix down by the project areas, but as you left that area and you went closer towards the other industry areas, like if you go up towards Delancey and Orchard Street and all that stuff, um, that was a lot of Hispanic, black. So you had some Jewish over there. Also, the co-ops was in between that area, so the co-ops had their own sort of area. But it was sever, it was sever, it was segregated. I can't even say now. But the areas were, segregated, segregated, and we didn't even know it. It was just like that's the way it was. Knickerbocker, that was over there. You kept out of there. You just passed by if you had to do something. Co-ops, you had that over there, and they had their little section where a lot of the Jewish people would go. And then you had, Chinatown. Each of them had their own sections. In our area, we had like a melting pot mix. That was the projects. But the changes that happened over there, if you go back to that neighborhood now, you wouldn't even think that those industries were ever there. The stuff that I'm talking about, you probably wouldn't believe because it's like no signs of it. Um, they've built high rises along the water over there, and they look nice, but there's really no sign of any industry. And back then, there was there was a lot of companies over there, and those changes really affected the future generations because now you look at the kids today that are in school. I mean, most of the stuff they gave away for free for us, as far as what we can learn and the skills we can pick up, um, you can't even find those today. And at that time, we had them for free, and it was like, who gave this stuff away? Who sold us out? You know, who sold out our generation? Who didn't fight for that to keep that there? Because even before our generation, uh, my group, a lot of the older people went to college for free. They didn't have to pay to go to college. It was, they didn't get charged. You know, you just, the school was paid for. And then in my group, I was late part of the baby boomers to the next group. Um, we had trade skills and all of that stuff. That was for free. But then after after my group passed and went to high school and all that stuff, it was maybe, from what I understand, maybe a couple of years later or less. All of that stuff was taken out of the schools. They just changed that. They didn't even offer it anymore. It was just like, oh well, that's it. You know, um, you couldn't even get those trades because I'll say the guys that I grew up with, each of us had. Just speaking for myself, I had maybe about an easy 15 different trades, or 15 different types of things where you could monetize and make some kind of money. I mean, they were blue collar hustling things. We didn't have the internet at that time, but for that time, there were ways you could make money doing that. Uh, and just kind of wrapping this up, like for today, those things are gone, um, and a lot of the youth today, they're processing stuff off the internet, and there's like a whole different thing that they have to do to make money. I mean, it, I mean, just recently, within the last, what is it, 15 years, 10 to 15 years, you got the internet boom with the YouTube and the Instagram and all that kind of stuff. So that's a revenue stream that they're starting to make money from. Prior to that, you still had to have some sort of skill set, but you wasn't getting it. You would have to go to college to get it. It wasn't offered to you. So what I'm basically saying, some of these skills that you would go to college to get today, a lot of that stuff, we got that stuff in high school as far as on the blue collar stuff. And then you had also some white collar jobs too. I remember back in what is it, first year of high school, they had Cobalt language. They offered it. I also took Cobalt language. But I had so many other things that I was doing. you know, I didn't think it was that important. Little did I know. We didn't have real guidance counselors back there. We did have guidance counselors that basically did. They would do, your guidance counselors would do, you would have like some altitude tests, and they would say, you have to fill that test. They would say, well, okay, with the test scores that you have and, the profile that you filled out, these are some likely things that, the computer will come out, or whoever they had it would give you some likely skills or areas that you would be good at with your skill set, which was pretty good. I don't know if they still do that today, but that was pretty good. And one of the areas that they had said for me, I actually was in that area, and I worked in that area on and off for a long time. But the change right now, um, it just seems like the change is one of these things where, if you do any traveling and you go to the other countries, you go to the, to you go to Europe, or if you go to the Far East. Um, when I went out there, a couple of years back, you could see where a lot of the jobs went. Because I recognize these industries. So when I went out there, I'm just going to talk about maybe one. I mean, they had them in Japan, they had them in Korea, and you see they had these free trade zones. And on these free trade zones, you see some of the companies. I seen some, different sort of companies, but similar companies that I used to see as a kid in the States. And there was no trace of them. When I got out of school, there was like no trace of a lot of those companies. I mean, even the big metal places, and they would bring in, steel wire metals on these trucks. I used to deliver those with the tractor trailer, bring them into Brooklyn. A lot of those places like disappeared, and then you just didn't get them anymore. And then the piers, where a lot of these places came from, we had piers all along Manhattan, Brooklyn, Staten Island, and then, Jersey, Newark, Bayonne. A lot of industry over there. And that lasted all the way up to about, I would say, like the mid 80s. And then it's they're still there, but they're very weak compared to before. And a lot of jobs are brought in over there, especially the New York piers. I used to go to the New York piers because I had my license early, driving a trailer. I was driving before 18 on a tractor trailer, but before they really had the breakdown of the CDL license. The CDL license wasn't even thought of at the time. But the piers, you have Pier 1 all the way up to Pier, go as far as 57, and then the Bush Avenue piers. So you had like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think you had 23. You had there was a bunch of them all along there, and there was a lot of money in there. And this was before even the containerization. At that time, those piers, the product that came in those piers, they came in on these, on the huge pallets, like these big 36. They were huge pallets. They were like 8-foot pallets, and they would come in. They'd be loaded. A lot of coffee bean. I think it was 23rd Street had a lot of coffee coming in off of there, but most of your stuff came in on those pallets. And then towards the late 70s and early 80s, I would say like the mid 70s, they started to change. They started to develop the containerization, and they started bringing a lot of stuff in on containers, 20 foots, 40 foots, open bed 40 foots. Then eventually they started coming in with uh, 48 foots. Now they got 53 footers, etc. In some places, but yeah, that changed that whole industry. So once the containerization came in, then a lot of those Brooklyn piers started to fall out because they were just too small, and they was not set up for the big ships. The big ships couldn't come into those uh, those ports. Those are not deep water ports, so a lot of that business out of New York, Brooklyn had to die down, and then that business on the Manhattan piers, like 36, some of the piers along the west side, um, those some of those piers started to die down. The banana piers and stuff like that. A lot of stuff moved over to Jersey. Then eventually, they even stopped coming over there. It just basically started coming in, out of the Newark and then out Holland Hook, and it was a big change. It was a big change as far as on the way we started doing it. And I'm just, I don't know, I got into this little history lesson of that area, but um, I'm saying this to say just to wrap it up because I'm just kind of ran a little bit way further than what I wanted to do. But the the industries that we didn't protect at the time actually got away from us, and the people that we put in charge to protect those industries, for some reason, wasn't able to protect them. Corporations, they got to follow the money. They got to go where the business, where the profits are. And back then, there was a lot of utilization. We had union jobs that protect a lot of people. The average person can make decent money. I mean, if you had a truck driving job, you had a mechanic's job, you had got any kind of blue collar job, your wife could stay home. She didn't have to go out and all that other kind of stuff. Today, I mean, you can't beg your wife to stay home, you know, and today you can't. A lot of us don't have that money, so she would want to stay home, you know, because and there's a whole lot of dynamics behind that, as the system started to change and when those jobs started to go away and the corporations started to go to the different countries to save money and then shipping the product over here, so we was only dealing with finished products. Eventually, we had to find a way to feed the people. So and there was a lot of not of it was not a lot of male jobs because they were sent overseas. So a lot of the minority males, black males, took the hit, you know, because we had a population that we didn't want to use anymore because we didn't want to spend that extra money. So the unions, they couldn't hold out, and the unions were broke down. And then without the unions, without the support of the unions, a lot of the industry just went wild, and they overpowered the unions. They brought them down to like under like 13% now, and you know, with no employee support, the corporation do what they want, and that's the way it is right now. Actually, it's even worse. But um, I'm gonna wind it up from here because this could be pretty boring. Um, I may continue this, but just wanted to give you an idea as far as on the way some of these cities were going. And I know I focused on New York, but a lot of this stuff started happening even in other towns, you know, and these were industry towns. Like, you had it happen in Camden, New Jersey. Camden, New Jersey had a big industry with the containers and the shipping and all of that sort of stuff. Uh, Pennsylvania, the same thing. They had a big shipping, a lot of blue collar industries over there that supported a lot of people. I mean, you're going all the way down the East Coast, Richmond. You go down to Charleston, Savannah, you know, the Miami ports. Going all the way around. In L.A., I'm not leaving those out. Um, and then even going up to Boston and going up that way. It affected a lot of industry, because the ports used to ship out a lot of stuff that was made here. We used to make a lot of good products. We had a lot of great ideas that I don't see here that much anymore. We see IT jobs, we see security jobs. I'm even seeing this trucking. Everybody starts saying, "Oh, go get your trucking license." I have my trucking license for over 40 years, and Now I guess I'm at the point where, you get to a point where you're timed out. But even at this time, I'm seeing a lot of companies in my area. A lot of trucks are sitting because there's a change. The change is coming again, where even the last of those hardcore blue collar jobs are threatened. You know, um, but if you travel overseas, you'll see also that industry starting to fade out because you know big corporations went to those places because it's all about profit. So they would go to China, Korea, Japan, Taiwan, Vietnam, you know, and then they go to South America, Mexico, and these places, and they make that product for pretty cheap, right? But then eventually, um, as they start to grow and they start to make money, I mean, look at China. China has so many billionaires. I forget the numbers, an outrageous amount of billionaires. You know, so a lot of those rich people, when you get rich, you don't want to, you get rich, you get a little heavy, you don't want to work too much, and a lot of that stuff that they used to do, now they don't want to do it anymore, so they farm it out to some other place. Like we farmed out our jobs to the Far East and Mexico and these places. Now those guys are making money, and they're farming it out to other countries. But now we're running out of countries. But the thing is, it's like we're going back in a big circle because now in the United States and some of these other industries, like even Germany and some of these places that were booming back in the day, the jobs are not there anymore. So now it's like, we call those other places third world. And if you look at our society and the way we are and the way the industry is and the rentals and the home ownership and all that stuff, and a lot of people in debt, technically, when you travel over there and you come back over here, it looks like we're third world now. And it's hard to say, and I don't know much of anything, but it seems like those jobs, they're going to be coming to the U.S. people because we get to the point where we're so overtaxed, we owe so much money, and a lot of us are in debt because of there's no industry and there's no way to make that money. And we got the prison labor, which is working for like dirt cheap, you know, slave labor. And eventually they're going to be going to the average person and giving them these low end sort of jobs, these 1099 jobs with no insurance, no benefits, you know. Back in the day, you got what you would get paid for 1099. Let's say if you got 20, 25 bucks, you still got benefits, and you could even someplace you have a retirement plan, you feel comfortable, you want to stay there. Today, you just get the 1099. Maybe they give you a mileage allowance, and that's it. And use your own vehicle. What do? You better hope it don't break down. You better hope you don't get sick. All the expenses come out of your pocket. That's the way it is. So it's like a full circle. You know, corporations gave away a lot to get what they needed, and we didn't care about the people that put in the time. We didn't care about the generations and our kids, um, and have an industry in place to help them out. And yes, we can blame it on the boomers saying that they didn't protect it, but um, a lot of them or us didn't see it coming. And then the ones that did see it coming, um, we couldn't get the protection, or we couldn't get to convince the people amongst us that this was coming. They look at you like you're crazy. Look, we got to go to a community board meeting. We better start talking about this stuff, or we're going to lose out. Yeah, yeah, they never show up. We better start supporting these industries. We support these companies, or these guys got to go out of business. Yeah, they didn't support it. Me and my friends, we had a couple of small businesses, and we barely got support from the local people. And then when we wind up closing down, hey, what happened? You never showed up. What do you mean? What happened? The people that would be coming to the business were people passing by off the highway, off of the bridges. But the local people, we didn't get the support, and that happened to a lot of the different companies out there. And now, the young kids, they're complaining. Oh, there's a lot of crime in the different areas where, certain areas the crime is rising, and you got the media pushing a lot of the stuff out there. You got these different social media things, and everybody's kind of acting out because yeah, there's no industry, there's nothing for them to do. You know, when we was kids, all these different neighborhoods, we had all kind of things to do. We had every kind of. When we got up in the morning, you get up 5 o'clock in the morning, come back at 9:30 at night. We were busy all day doing stuff from basic work, helping people out, to get money. Then after that, we did that early in the morning. Then we went to school. After school, we played sports, football, stickball, baseball, stoop ball, volleyball, manhunt. We had so many different things to do. It was never nothing. You wasn't bored. You was always doing something. There was always something to do. And the things that we did, you know, you can use those things. Basketball. If you was into basketball, you had baseball. We had guys that I knew that played baseball and did pretty good. Basketball, the same thing. And then we had guys that was track and field. And that's just on the athletic end. And then we had martial arts and judo and they had the instruments. There was a lot of things to do. And today, the young generation don't have a lot of these different things to do. Again, like I was saying, each of us had over like 15 different skills, and I'm being modest. We had so many different things that you can do. So if your industry got slow, you can always go back and do something else that could help you out. And those things are not here today for the young people. And then they wonder why, and they blame the young people why, some of the stuff is going on because we don't have any setups for them. There's no jobs. We didn't. The industries that we had are not here. The industries that we had in our time, we seen them go away. Eventually I had to move out of the tri-state area, to follow the industries. And the same thing is happening in a different way to the youth today. I mean, there's a lot of internet sort of jobs that are going out there, but I don't know if it's enough to take care of millions and millions of people. But there are some answers. There's a lot of questions. There's not a lot of help from the politicians. It seems like the industries took over and they're controlling the way the stuff is going. And we got to be quite cautious going forward. It's going to be some. It's going to be a lot of things we have to think about going forward. We're going to have to watch how we spend. We got to watch how we do things. We have to acquire some sort of ownership in any kind of way we can. If we can create our own industries, we gotta have to be creative. The young people gotta have to be creative in different ways that we didn't have to do when we were young. You know, and they're gonna have to find different types of jobs that will be mobile, and they have to do a lot of you know ownership type of stuff. They're gonna have to create their own businesses where they can own and control stuff. Um, so there's a lot of questions out there, but uh, just want to thank you for taking this time to listen to uh, a portion of what I'm saying as far as what's happening to the U.S. cities. And we got to try to prepare ourselves the best way we can, and we got to be ready and able to do what we have to do to protect what we got and to feed our families and to find new ideas and new solutions so we can function and get by going forward. Because it seems like the people that we put to manage that are not really managing the way they should be, at least at this time. I want to thank you all for listening and peace, and I hope everyone does well and finds the answers that they need. And hopefully, going forward, we're going to try to supply some answers uh, and help out in different ways if we could.